like where does the US go from here? Like I don't know that you can. Two questions. Where do we go from here? And two, what does this do for the commitments moving forward? Because the whole thing this time around was we didn't roll our best lineup out there. We got to go win this thing for the United States. We got to go take gold. We roll out what is probably going to be one of the better rosters that you're going to be able to find. They come up short. Do we then now swing the pendulum the other way and guys be like, well, I don't know. I mean, we couldn't get it done with that. I don't know if I'm really particularly interested in doing the whole rah, let's try to go win it for country thing next time around. If we couldn't do it with this, where do we go?
Well, I think it did more for other countries than it did for us. Like, you just watched Italy go for a run. You just watched Venezuela obviously win it and go for a run. Take out Japan in that stretch, right? Like, you watch other countries that just go and did their thing. And I think it made probably more players feel like, wow, I can go represent that country now, feeling like we actually have a shot. I think if USA won that and pulled it out, then like, yeah, it would have been great for USA, but it probably would have been put like a damper on other players for other countries in a way. Same with Japan. I think if Japan repeated, other countries would just been like, well, what's the point? I think that now, like, I don't know. I mean, like, sick for baseball. I'm upset, but like sick for baseball. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You just watched a how old catcher, right? In a Sally Perez. You just like you see like I don't know, Ronald Acuna has like slipped off of like the perennial MVP vote, and now he's like somewhat of an underdog story. You got Gleyber Torres, who never panned out as a good Yankee. You got, you know what I mean? Like, you have all these underdogs for this team. Venezuela just came out and won this thing. It's like, I think this says players of all ages, of all origins, saying, you know what, screw it, I'll go play for my country, and we might pull it out.
I think that's one of the
Bars.
biggest things. I think that baseball definitely wins this year. This was the most competitive. Japan going down in the round before this was good for the tournament, right? But I think in general, I think this was, first off, good for the WBC in general. This year was not any results of this, but the fact that it was very competitive. The fact that outside of Brazil and, you know, a couple of those teams that really had no shot at anything anyway, there's more than just three teams in this thing right now.
Yeah.
Venezuela's there, Italy's there, and you're going to see more of that, right? I mean, Mexico's still a good team, and you might see more of that too. The rules are so loose. Guys want in this tournament.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it. That's it. They want to play they'll play in it wherever they can get there. It doesn't matter if they're Americans, right? They're going to go play for Italy. They're going to go play for Mexico. They're going to go play wherever because they can, and because this is starting to become more and more exciting in that way. And I think having a postseason atmosphere in March rather than spring training for a lot of people who just can't stand spring training, right?
Erod's crying.
I turned
Erod's
it off.
crying getting interviewed. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point.
This
I think
means
the whole
something to
point
these
your-
guys.
100%. The whole point to your question is, where do we go from here? I don't know, because I felt like this was our shot. And now the rest of the world just figured out how sick this thing is. And it's probably going to get a lot more difficult for USA to get back to the stage. That's how I feel.
Yeah, but
That's
I
how
also
feel.
think that I think that you changed Bryce Harper's mind. We already know that you've changed Scooble's mind.
I don't think
he's
Bryce
said
is
as
back
much.
in it. I don't think Bryce will be back in it.
No, but the point
I
is-
don't know if Judge will be back in it. Schwarber's probably not back in it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the point is that these guys are now, they will walk away from this thing as ambassadors of this
Yeah.
because of the experience that they had this year. And I'm telling you, like Scooble said, I thought this was a glorified all-star game.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, I see that it's something entirely different.
Yeah.
So his mind has changed. He was here. Bryce Harper, I don't know his take on the Olympics. He's obviously way higher on the Olympics than I am, but the fact that he wasn't even there, right? He couldn't get past that. Well, this isn't this. This is, and now look at what he did tonight. You know what I'm saying? I just think that there's a lot more guys that are going to be interested. The more guys we get into this tournament, the better it is. And
how loud that. Look how
that goes
loud
for
that crowd
USA.
is.
That goes for Venezuela. That goes for Puerto Rico. That goes for all these places. Sure. But the point is that baseball won this month. And I don't think that you're going to have a hard time. It's not going to go backwards. They're going to continue to put this roster out here. The U.S. is. You're going to see guys like Bobby Witt start talking about it already. Obviously, Skeens is always going to be in.
Yeah. I think you have some of these names in. I think you have returners in a way. But man, I think the road's going to get a lot more difficult because Italy is 75, 80% American born. And I know that's not like the only, you know what I mean? There's plenty of loopholes to be able to go play for whatever country if you don't get in for your main one. I think it's going to get a lot more difficult. And I bet you look at some of these guys and it's like, this got me tuned up for the regular season. This got me going more than a regular spring training would. And who knows where the landscape of baseball is going to be in 3 years. But this thing, we've been saying it. Casey and I have been telling everybody, this thing is sick. This is one of the coolest things our game does. So now you know.
This was far and wide double any one before this, though. So I mean, just for those out there, but for those out there who weren't aware, right? Better late to the party.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So and like I mean, I've told you guys, 2023 was the first time I got into it and watched it. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to know if you're not involved. I mean, you saw some of the guys in our chat last night. Baseball is also a very regional sport.
Yeah,
they care about their team. They don't care about any other team. It's a very regional sport. And this here, what baseball's doing with this tournament and what we've seen, did you see the Pasquantino line where he was talking to the kid from Italy or at least to, speaking to kids in Italy, talking about, hey, I mean, we talked about the fact that was like America #2, but he's saying, listen, we're doing this for all the kids in Italy right now. In 20 years, we want this team to be full of kids who were born and raised in Italy.
You had Cervelli driving all around the country in a van trying to recruit a 15U team, an 18U team. So whoever is in the camp of saying that this doesn't matter and this is exhibition baseball, take a freaking hike because we just watch grown men cry over winning an exhibition tournament.
Do you think Erod is shedding tears over a spring training start against the Giants? No,
Erod might have also just thrown the best game of his life too.
It's true, dude.
He had some gems for the Sox, but point taken.
Yeah, he did.
No, but going back to the point about people's minds being changed. Look, if you were of the mindset that this was a meaningless exhibition and you're like, I couldn't be more out on the World Baseball Classic, I don't care about it, but you watch these later rounds of the tournament and have since changed your mind, that's okay. You don't have to do what we do any other situation in life, in society, in the world where you gotta dig deeper into your stance. You're allowed to change your mind and say, actually, this is pretty sick. I'm gonna tune in from pitch 1 next time around. It's okay. We welcome you into that way of thinking because this tournament is legit.
Baseball should never have gatekeepers, right? No. The whole point of this tournament is to grow the game and push it out everywhere. Yeah. And Nate, you said it's going to be a harder road from now on. Good. Because you know what else we like to do here? We like to earn things.
Yeah. It's true. Get hungry. I heard a take. I don't even remember where I heard it. I think it was talking about how like the whole, like you play for the name on the front of your jersey, not the back. And this was one of those where like, actually you kind of do get to play for the name on your back.
I said this and somebody else said this to me. That's your family.
Like you're playing for your family of those. Like if there are, the Pasquantino, for example, where he talked about it was like Pasqua Tontino or something like that. And then after they migrated to the Americas, they made it Pasquantino. And it's like that means something for, you know, your family and your tree. Like,
I think that's really
there's
cool.
an aspect to that just, that's a box that doesn't get checked during the regular season, during a postseason run, or even during a World Series win. Like, this is just a very different thing. And I love that it's so, I think it's perfectly timed. Every 3 years, I think is perfect. And I'm excited to see who returns, what new faces, you know, join in. But like, I don't know how. I don't even want that silver medal. I wouldn't even want that around my neck.
Nah, I mean, the harder this tournament gets, the more valuable that silver medal is. I mean, obviously you want to win it, but when you look back in hindsight, I don't like the way that you lost. I mean, the offense just shut down. You had one swing in this game.
Right.
You had two swings last game.
It's been that case for 3 games.
Yeah.
It's been
and
3 games of bad offense.
Swing you got from this guy, like the one swing you got in this game was from the guy who is non-existent the entire tournament.
Yeah. Well,
you know what's
and
licking
again,
his chops
I think Jake said that's
Rob
baseball.
Manfred, dude. Rob Manfred this was one of the biggest baseball wins I think you could. The landscape of baseball.
He's
huge, man.
Rob Manfred's already. I think he's licking his chops for multiple reasons. I think he looks at this and is having the same sort of conversation in his head that we're having and going, if all things go the right way, this could be even bigger and likely will be bigger in 2029.
Yeah.
And that's huge for baseball. Yeah, sure, and beyond. But it's only gonna the momentum we can hope is only gonna grow.
You're looking at, like, you know, we've talked about this, that what is the equal parts to this, right? Something like the World Cup. You know what I'm saying? The World Cup's been around for 100 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like you're building something that could last and be something special. Yeah. I think this year was a huge stepping stone. And obviously in the culture that we're in versus 100 years ago, this kind of thing can grow quicker than something then could, you know what I mean?
I'm also curious to see what it does towards pitchers. And like JB, I fully understand kind of the stance you've taken throughout this thing of like, you know, hey, like the first obligation is to your employer, your team, the jersey you're going to wear for 8 months, right? Like, I get that. But I'm curious to see now what this does. Can I get ramped up a little bit quicker? Can I start my program a little bit earlier in preparation for this to be able to go the full 65, 85, 90 pitches, whatever it requires for whatever level? Can I be ready if a finals does come up, you know what I mean? Or semifinals in a championship round? Like, I think it could change the way we approach certain things. Now, how it aligns with some of the dream names, with how free agency falls, or potentially getting traded to a new team and it's the first time you're putting those threads on, like, that's a different thing. You know what I mean? I understand that. But this was the through the door eye-opening experience that I think is going to potentially change the approach moving forward.
I've got a question. I'm simply asking because I have not the slightest clue as to the different topics or categories of discussion that they get into with the CBA negotiations. But do you think there's going to be anything even remotely close to the topic of maybe reevaluating what the insurance situation looks like for this event? I know it's sort of nuanced. It's a niche thing. As big as this tournament is, as much as we love it, I just wonder now, like you said, Josh, I feel like we have some new ambassadors for this thing who may be at the table. So, you know, the proverbial table, at having these discussions, and maybe I don't know, maybe they throw that out there as something being like, hey, is this something we can at least talk about? Or is this something that we can consider moving forward to help grow the game? Because you look at how that we talked about it, this whole tournament. You look at how this tournament has gone, and you cannot tell me, regardless how many people want to say this tournament is pointless, this is just an exhibition, you cannot tell me that baseball is in a worse position now than when it was when we started this tournament.
Right.
So it obviously carries some value, some weight. So with that said, is there a way that we can protect some of these? And I'm not just talking about a way to get these names out playing for the United States, because that was obviously one of the bigger talking points of like, oh, this name couldn't get that. Puerto Rico, another good example of like, you couldn't, there's a few guys there you couldn't get due to insurance issues. Is there a way that we can evaluate what that process looks like and what goes into those decisions to maybe protect some guys and to make this event even better moving forward?
Tell me I'm crazy. I don't think I'm that crazy because we used to have it. On WBC years, can we push opening day back a week and give these guys one extra week in camp? See what that does. You know what I mean? We talked about, and JV, you've brought it up in person and on this of like, you know, a lot of these guys are paying attention to how many ups that some of these pitchers are going to have, specifically with starters. It's like how many, you know, all of that is very scheduled out and very planned.
Yeah.
If we push back 1 week, and we used to have a little bit of a later opening day. If we push it back 1 week and allow these guys just one extra week of getting on schedule, do you see more arms committing? Do you see the repetition of going more than 2 starts? You know what I mean? I don't know what the adjustment is, but to go with that of like some of these teams signing off and insurance being involved and some of that stuff, do you feel a little bit better if we just have a little bit more preparation time?
There's been some conversations too about doing pool play and maybe the quarterfinals at this time. And then you really would only pitch one game, and then do something where the semifinals and the finals happen during All-Star week. And either you cut the All-Star game or you know, the guys that are playing in it aren't in the All-Star game. And then how watered down is the All-Star game? I mean, I don't know, but could you do that and wrap it around the weekend and just say, like, we have a full week off now instead of 4 days off? Like, you essentially get a series off for the All-Star game, and instead we're going to give you the full week. I think that any longer than that is too long for hitters to be off, but I think you could go maybe that amount of time. I don't know if that's right. There's other leagues involved. I don't know if them taking, you know, a full week off and doing all that stuff is something that they would agree to. But that's a thought too. As far as the pitchers go, and as far as, well, insurance, I'll start with that. The rules that they have right now could probably be looked at. Right now, it's if you spent any time on the IL, we're not going to insure you. There's a lot of money that has to go out in order to do that. Some of it is team related, and that's the one that, like, I kind of really get, you know what I'm saying? And that's the hard part about it. But I think there's ways that you could go in, and Carlos Santana was not approved for insurance. And the Diamondbacks said, we've got 2 important teammates that he would be playing with that are going. I want you to go with those guys because that actually helps our team this year, because your first year it was Diamondbacks, right? He signed with the Diamondbacks. Yeah, because Cattell and Perdomo were both playing with the Dominican.
I think that checks out.
So I think that was like, no, we actually want you to go. And so the team was like, we signed him to a 1-year deal. Yeah, we'll take that risk. Go be with your dudes. You know what I mean? So I think that's that's something that you could see. Arms are just hard. Until we change our pitching philosophy, there's going to be arm injuries regardless of whether it's spring training or WBC, right? I mean, I just watched a guy take a line drive back to the head in spring training. Like that, yeah, that could happen in the WBC, and people are like, well, but people aren't geared up. Like, dude, I'm sorry. I know that there are people who have a thought about spring training, but like most players are playing hard. They're playing for a job.
If they're stepping on
So
the field, they understand the risk.
that's right. And so
That's the whole argument of why our all-star game is better than every other sport, is because we don't know, we can't physically take that off. You're not going to see a pitcher who averages 95 and a half start throwing 82. We don't do that. Our game can't do that. There's no way around it. It's going to happen in spring training. It's going to happen during this tournament.
you're just not going to leg out a double.
Sure.
You might shut it down, right?
Right,
That's the difference. And that's it. Everything else, the at bat, you want to hit a nuke. You're not going to, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I think unfortunately the one thing that, to kind of caveat what I was saying earlier about more guys being in around the league and trying to find whatever country they can play for. I think the cool, crazy, I'm a plumber by day and I'm a closer by Czech Republic at WBC every 3 years by night. Like, I think those stories are probably going to come to an end. It's most likely going to all be big league talent for the most part. And same thing with, the story of a 17-year-old being in the league and still being a senior in high school. Like, some of those things I think are going to start to fade. And that's maybe the difference between a WBC and an Olympics, of being a professional athlete versus not. But I think this thing's a rocket ship.
To that point, it's very, I mean, I don't know how great this take is, but it's the first thought that came to mind. It's very like 1980s. I know I mentioned the 1980s hockey team way too much, but like if you go back and like you watch the documentaries, you watch you watch Miracle, you get a little bit of a background on the state of that tournament with the Olympics at that time. It sort of was kind of like this, where there were a lot of amateurs involved. You had your juggernauts. In this case, it was, supposed to be the United States, but then it was the Soviets. But then, enough time passes, players get better, teams get better. Those stories start to fizzle out, where you don't have the amateurs, you don't have these plumber stories. You get to a point where the finished product is a little more polished. I think that's where we're headed. But it's hard to say. But I think at the very least, those stories have been cool and they've helped fuel the momentum at the very least. It's just a matter of, like you said, how long that's going to continue.
Well, what about this though? I mean, because let's think about what Pasquantino said about talking to like the kids of Italy, right? So if you start to get more interest in baseball globally, and you see like a team like Italy or a team we haven't even seen all of a sudden put a team in, because now they're like, we want a piece of that. So now you are going to get, I mean, how far is Italian baseball in 15 years or whatever, when we have another one of these, and all of a sudden you saw a 10-year-old who's now 25, who was part of the big boom of baseball. He's not quite MLB, so he's got a job because there's nowhere else to do it, but he's like he's a better baseball player and he can actually hang. So I think that you still might get some of those where it's like, yeah, but this guy actually did play a lot of baseball and he was very good. He's just now, there's no more baseball to play because he lives in Italy. And so, like, I mean, how long does it take to develop a lot of those guys and create a league? Like, that's going to take, 30, 40 years. I don't know. Maybe not, but I don't know. Maybe there is still more. Henry brought up a good question, though, Kyle, if you want to pull that up. He's talking to me about Bryce. Would he have changed his mind if he didn't have the moment like that?
Well, I feel like there's two parts to that question. Would he have changed his mind on this tournament that he just played in, and does it change his mind about the tournament in general moving forward. General moving forward. I would say yes to both. I think I honestly for his sake, for the sake of him being an ambassador for this event,
Cleaning lady.
I think that last at bat for Bryce was the best thing that, I mean, obviously outcome wise, yeah, that's exactly what you would have hoped for in that situation. But I think just in terms of his perception of the event, that's the best thing that could have happened in that moment for him, again, being an ambassador moving forward. Because if he doesn't get that moment, if he doesn't get that rush of adrenaline, that chill running down his spine, the point to the flag, the salute at third, seeing Lone Depot come unglued with the whatever percentage of American fans were there, I don't know that there was enough that happened this tournament for him to change his mind from where he stood at the beginning of the tournament. It was, remember, those comments were after the first game. He had one game under his belt against Brazil, and he said, well, it's not the Olympics. It's like, okay, Bryce, just wait till the later part of this tournament. Yeah. Not even the end of the tournament. Just wait till you get going a little bit and you'll see. And I think he saw. And I think by the end of it, with that home run, I think he saw what we've been trying to get into his brain this entire time.
Yeah,
Nate,
and I think
want you
the
to
sting of losing too, you know? What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I want you to break the tie here because I was gonna say I think that his mind changed and that's how that happened. But I'll also say that as far as the ambassador thing goes, I think that his voice doesn't carry without that moment.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
But I think Nate has more to say on it, so I just wanted to.
No, I think it's the sting of the loss, right? Like obviously that. I don't know what carries more weight. I don't know what keeps a guy. You know, obviously these guys are gonna potentially lose sleep a little bit, right? Of a loss versus winning it, and I think the comments when you stack everything up, right? Like Casey kept talking about like the number of quotes that we've gotten from the USA team and the number of distractions, right? And it's the Bryce quote, it's the Mark DeRosa, you know, punching the ticket quote, maybe not fully understanding the rules. It's the Cal Raleigh not shaking hands. And it's like this weird, like underlying tone that USA wasn't tapped in, right? Like you guys aren't fully there. And Casey and I have talked about being in person at the last one in Chase Field. When you see other cultures, and I'm going to specifically, I think, just highlight Latin cultures, are so much fun when they watch these games. These fans are just, it's a very different energy. And I don't think any of these players have gotten to experience it because, like, when you get to play in a World Series and you get to hop back and forth between your home crowd and the away crowd, and obviously it's fully this way and it's fully this way, but when you're in a crowd that's back and forth the whole time, how often do these guys get to experience that, right? How often do they get to feel a Mexican crowd get extremely loud for their team and then a USA chant starting and they're rivaling each other? That doesn't happen in any of our crowds at any point during our regular, normal, scheduled program, right? So I think when you have that, you have the experience of playing in it. Then you have some of these younger guys where Roman Anthony has a game of his life and he comes out and says, yeah, I grew up watching Bryce Harper. I wanted to be him. How often do you get to have those opportunities in an environment that matters? Because All-Star games, we talked about, you're trying to stay healthy. You're enjoying the moment more for the fans versus the players. This is just as much for the players. So for them to experience that entire environment, they're in a dugout with guys that potentially looked up to for years. You're seeing towards the end of their peak. You're entering into the conversation. That's always going to be that way. Then you match that with other countries that are just putting their names on the radar for the first time. It is the perfect balance. Pudge said it earlier with one of his comments. That's what makes baseball the best. It's because it's any size at any moment, whoever just figures out how to win the moment. And that's what Venezuela did. And we didn't really feel that way the whole time. Our team was kind of blah. And it's shame on them for not fully being bought in. Shame on some of these guys for not fully understanding what it is. Because I watch plenty of other cultures and plenty of other backgrounds know exactly what this is. And that's why you're seeing guys on the field crying right now. It's because they knew exactly what this is coming in. Guys that have been working for it. I think we're a little spoiled as a crowd. Specifically with the red, white, and blue, man. And it sucks.
The entitlement was off the charts.
Entitlement's crazy. And I'll continue to wear this jersey and I'll continue to root for them. And that's never going to change. But I think when you see this, I think Venezuela winning moved this tournament and progressed it way more than a repeat Japan or a USA dub. And I'm okay with that.
I mean, they're grown men. They just got done a few minutes ago singing what I can only imagine was the Venezuelan national anthem. And like 80% of the guys were just shedding tears. Like actually like alligator tears. We're not just talking about like, oh, it's dusty in here. Like alligator tears just falling down the cheek. And you're gonna see. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's like, how in the world can you sit there and see that and not be moved whatsoever as a person or as a baseball fan? And how, more importantly, can you look at this and go, this means nothing? Like, what are we talking about? How many more? Like 2023, I get it. It was a great tournament, and I think the people that were really tapped in could see the potential. I mean, it was a great tournament, especially the finish, Japan, USA, great finish. But I think the people who were tapped in could already see what this was going to become. But there are no excuses, having watched this tournament, to not be on board for the next one, or to spend the next 3 years going, I'm sorry, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't know what to tell you. You either don't have a pulse or you're just not. I'm convinced you're not a fan of baseball. It's one of those two.
Or wasn't watching. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not watching, I can't expect you to buy in right away. So I think that's the only thing there. So a couple things, because I remember I looked this up. I told you that the argument about the meaningless exhibition doesn't even have to happen. This is a sanctioned tournament. It is not exhibition. It is sanctioned. So I don't know what for, but the point is that we can officially say that it's not. I think that it brings
somebody brought it up in the chat or the comments. I can't remember. They said there's a trophy. So at the very least, they're playing for something. Like, this isn't just like, all right, guys, we'll see you back at spring training kind of thing.
It's also not on MLB Network. This is on Fox. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is nationally televised. And I don't know. How do
good
you
on
not
MLB
root
for that, by the way.
Yeah. This is a win. This is a win. This is a through and through win. Sucks that USA didn't pull it out. But overall, we kind of all had that in the back of our minds the whole tournament. It just, something felt a little off. Something felt like this wasn't the most important mountain to climb for some of these guys, the immediate mountain to climb. I get that there's a season coming. I would love to like sneakily pay attention to how some of these guys produce for their teams entering into the beginning of the season. I'd love to see specifically how some of these hitters, how quickly they tap in, right? And you've seen like Luis Ariz popped off, Roman Anthony, you know what I mean? Like a lot of true, but a lot of names, dude. Just Tovar, like. There's guys from Korea that have popped off, and like, what does that do for the KBO? What does that do for the Japanese league? Like, how many of these guys are wanting more of this level of competition, knowing that this is what majority of MLB is like, right? This, it's great for baseball. And look at them on the stage, man. Confetti flying, like, job well done. Job well done on MLB. Job well done on this tournament. It's getting the. I've had a few people text me who don't follow baseball at all, asking me about this tournament, and
I think that's
the
one of the
goal.
beautiful
That's what we've been
things
hearing
about
about, right?
100%.
Get people that don't watch, get
That's
them to
it.
watch. This is what did it.
It's instant, right? The whole thing is this whole thing is a sprint. It's instant gratification. You're directly in. There is no like. I think that what this thing does is like I've said it a lot. It's postseason atmosphere right away, but it's also completely different. Like I don't.
It's anti MLB in a way, right?
I will say this. Like when I saw Judge's comment about it being better the World Series, I think he's off his rocker. I think he's feeling the moment right now, and I'm totally fine with him feeling the moment.
Well,
Totally.
context. I interpreted that way too, but somebody had to come in and correct me, and they said he did. And I went back and read the full quote, like in its entirety. He was talking specifically about the atmosphere. He wasn't talking about the event as a whole. But I think a lot of people just interpreted that as like a counter to what Bryce had said.
Yeah,
and
this
they're
is
like,
quote
okay,
cards,
he's just swinging it the other way. I don't know.
It's what we do with quote cards, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's fair. Thank you. But the thing is like to what you said, Kyle, about the fact that there was like the Mexico, the U.S., and you don't get that anywhere else because you're playing on home turf. It's typically going to be favored to one side. And in this tournament, you did see those matchups where it is an even, like it's a, what do you call that when you play at a stadium that's not in either one?
Neutral site, even playing field.
Yes, in neutral site. And so like it's totally different in that way. You know what I'm saying? Where you can have fans from both sides, like every home run is cheered for. And it's totally different. I think what, for the baseball purists that might listen to this and think like you're crazy, you're this just happened. That's why we're pumping this up. But also when you get to, and we can talk about the tiers and how immediate and how emotional this is because emotions are like that. That's how they work, right? Everything's a sprint. Everything is, you get one chance. If you're winning the World Series, you kind of have an idea you might win this tonight. You know what I mean? So there's maybe you're a little more prepared for that. And emotionally you can handle that a little more. Not to mention you had a 200-day grind before getting to this spot. So I think when you say like you play for the name on your chest, you're playing for that clubhouse of guys that you just spent 6 months with. And so I think that the postseason and the World Series, it's just different. I don't like, I'm not going to say whoever you are, you can pick which one you like better. But all I'm saying is like, you've almost developed that atmosphere. Well, the atmosphere you did, but you've almost developed that same level of play in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that fits our culture.
Yeah.
And when you're trying,
for
to your point about spreading the game.
Coming out of football, like you're in March Madness, like, there's a lot of that, like, one and done kind of. I mean, I get that for sure. I think one other thing, if you look at the other sports that are trying to tap into this, and we use soccer as like an easy reference because of the World Cup. How much, if you talk to soccer fans, they're like, country means more than the MLS. Like the MLS is like, no one really cares about that. So there's such an outweigh that way, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have like, okay, the NHL, they're started to ditch the All-Star game and let's go to like, the four countries thing. And then you have the NBA starting to get into this US versus the world thing. And then like we're starting to tap into these other cultures and starting to see what that's about a little bit more. I think we're just scratching the surface. And I don't know, man. We're the biggest melting pot. I don't care what anyone else says. Major League Baseball is the biggest melting pot of being able to grab other cultures. And you can't tell me that some of these other countries watching, some of these kiddos don't get more fired up and tapped from seeing some of their countries represented. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to be in Venezuela and you're a Michael Garcia fan for the Royals and you see the Royals go win it all, that means something. But when you see the flag and you know, you're struggling in some of these countries, in these third world countries, and you're using a tire as second base, you know what I mean? Like, you can't tell me this doesn't mean something to them. And I think that's what a lot of these guys are at this point, right? A lot of these guys that are crying are thinking about, I remember when I was playing barefoot in dirt and trying to find a way out of my country to find an opportunity for my family. Like, that's what this does. And if we can continue to just pour into that, I think it's incredible. And luckily, I think US fans probably don't feel that same thing. You know, we've probably all been blessed with our upbringing to be able to play in, you know, normal fields and have a pair of cleats and a nice glove. And like, you see some of these other countries that that's just not an option for some of those worlds that they're in. So I love what this does. And I don't know, the more I talk about it, the more I'm on board with Venezuela winning, because I think what it does to this tournament and what it does for baseball in general is just so much more special. And we're spoiled and we're obviously blessed. And it's like, we're going to turn it up in 3 years. We're probably going to try and align the Avengers again, of whatever that team looks like in 3 years. But I love that it's probably going to be a lot more competitive, and you're not just going to see one or two, you know, names on a Great Britain team on a major league roster and everyone else is on high A. Like, you're going to see names everywhere, and it's just going to get harder.
And I think looking at the topic of personnel, like you're saying about high A and things like that, I think one of the issues, one of the concerns was people like, well, you've just got a bunch of Americans playing on all these other teams around the tournament. If things like
Are
this,
we not a melting pot?
Right, but it's like, if things like this continue to happen, a team like Venezuela gets in there, wins the thing, and teams like, I don't remember which of you said it at the beginning, but like, it makes other teams feel like they have a shot, a real legitimate shot.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to the game of baseball. I mean, say what you will about Rob Manfred. One of his goals, I think, is to get out of this being a regional sport, make it a global sport. And something like this certainly helps that. But I think as baseball continues to grow, you continue to have more driving around Italy in a van type stories. The game is going to evolve. Players are going to get better. And then I honestly think we're going to get to a point where they're going to tighten the restrictions a little bit on who can represent a certain team, because the talent pool that they're going to be choosing from is going to be a lot deeper, because the game has evolved because of things like this.
Yeah,
could be.
Absolutely. You guys think D-Rose done? You think this was his last ride?
I'm wondering now if he just increased his chances with some of this stuff, because if he takes a major league team, he's not doing this. And I would wonder the same thing. Like, you know, I saw a comment and you're saying, I think it was Jacob saying Cervelli's going to build Italian baseball. He may have just earned himself a major league job.
It's very true.
I mean, I know that, you know, obviously, you know, being around Pittsburgh and everything, that's all the chatter right now. Don Kelly, can you get this guy on your staff? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm a sucker for a retired catcher in a dugout. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we wanted it was Jim Leland, right? So
yeah, I think so.
That's an interesting conversation. I like what you're saying though about like how this tournament can potentially provide new opportunities for some of these guys, whether it be player or coach, you know, potentially finding a job with a major league team. I'm very interested to see how USA pivots. And you look at some of these other names. If Escobar is still at the top of his game at this point, you'd like to think that he's probably smack dab in the middle of his contract and not going into a walk year. How does this line up for Paul Skeens with as far as his control? You know, is he fresh onto a new team? Is he about to walk into a new team? some of these other names, do you see other names pop up that are suddenly, freaks and want to produce? This
when's the next one?
PCA is suddenly in his prime and he lives up to be what everyone thinks he's going to, you know what I mean? Like,
Did they announce 2029 already?
Well, I mean, it's every 3 years, right? Like that's a lock.
Well,
Unless it's
I mean,
a
obviously it missed.
2020.
We missed 2020, and then it was like, when are we going to do it again?
I don't think the lockout pushes anything. I think there's enough of a.
Well, no, it was.
I was just thinking,
wasn't
because
it
you said
27?
schemes.
It was 2017, right? Or am I misremembering that?
I think that's right.
And
That's
then
when
it
we won it.
missed 2020, and then they picked it back up in 23.
23. That's what I
Now
think.
it's
That's what he's
26.
asking, is that if it's going to be any kind of lockout, if that affects anything. I think the
Right.
lockout's being smack dab in the middle of
The
the time in between is probably a good thing. But I'm just really interested to see how things change, how things progress, how some of these players view it. On the USA side, like we were kind of talking about, you got to probably say thanks to half this roster, you're not going to see these guys returning. You may see Skeens and Bobby Witt.
I don't
Anthony.
know. I could
Roman
see.
Anthony.
Maybe this is just me being hopeful, and I'm just being a victim of the moment. But I feel like maybe you see a Harper not as a integral role
More
3
like a
years from
Goldschmidt
now,
role.
more like a Goldschmidt. But I could see that happening.
Gunner's only 24.
Gunner. I'd say
Bryce
it's probably a good
Harang
name to
still, I
bring
think,
back.
25 or 26.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting to see.
PCA.
I mean, if it is a new manager at the helm, Trey Turner didn't even get a call, and he was hands down our best player last tournament. So,
Well, and you just don't know. I mean, you're talking 3 years too. You don't know. There's some guys that are breaking into the league right now who, in 3 years might be. I mean, just look at Roman Anthony right now. I mean, he's 21.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to start tapping into that. Of course, our guy, Connor Griffin, would be a guy that would be interested in something like this. And you know what I mean? So how many more of those?
Well, not even the guys,
McGonigal, you know
not
what I
even the
mean?
guys breaking into the league, but I'm going to be curious to see who's the batch that's sitting at home right now watching this tournament, because it happened this tournament with last tournament. You had a batch of guys who were already here. They were established, but they were going, man, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And then they sign up for the next tournament. I'm curious who fits that mold that's going to be joining the team next tournament.
Yeah.
So here's another take. I don't think in 3 years you're going to change pitching philosophy. Pitching is way too. They have the upper hand right now. It's fantastic what they're doing out there, and yes, it leads to injuries. But instead of maybe saying, "Oh, let's do more insurance things," they're not going to change a lot of that. And the more you make, the harder it is to pay the insurance, or the harder it is to agree to the insurance and whatnot. But increase the number of pitchers on the roster. Let's get them all in, and then we don't have to worry as much about, he just threw, like, okay, but we got another dog.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to run this guy dead because we've got 7 closers sitting out there or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 7 might be a lot, but you know what I'm saying? Like, don't change anything on the offensive side, but let's just add more arms to the roster that are able to pitch, and then we'll lighten the load off of these guys to saying, like, no, we have to have him for 95 pitches. You don't. If you've got 2 starters out there and you can split the thing in half and 60 each, I mean, my goodness, you're through a game. So, you know what I'm saying?
I mean,
let's increase the number of guys we can have on the roster.
Yeah.
I'm a baseball purist, but if building this thing up even more than what it was built up to this time around, if in order to do that, if it means adding or giving teams the option to have 35 pitchers on the staff, I don't care.
Yeah.
But do what you need to do, because I know I'm all like, this isn't an exhibition, this isn't a meaningless exhibition thing. I know I'm all that, but at the same time, I understand that it is like it's a marquee event, so it's different than your typical Major League Baseball, but because of how much momentum it has right now, don't have these same storylines that we saw around the tournament next time. Like, just do what you got to do. If you have to appease these big league clubs, whatever, but like, don't tweak it to somehow reverse the momentum that it's built up thus far.
Yeah. On the counter side, I think I don't remember what team was it, Cuba, where you saw a position player need to be held back from his manager because he basically only had like 2 or 3 ABs the whole tournament, and one of which was like a pinch hit.
Yeah,
down by a bunch in the last inning.
Cuba,
which is a separate story. I don't know if it was Cuba. A separate story. No need to really peel back that onion too much, but I think that like there's probably going to be more rules around position players getting a minimum, number of at bats, barring any injuries. I think there's going to be a lot of like roster rules that are going to come about this. But one thing I wanted to say was, and I'd like to think that a lot of people, listening right now are fairly similar in our age and, grew up watching the same names. I'd love to see the comparison of retired legends in this tournament compared to the last tournament. When you look around and you have an Albert Pujols, a Miguel Cabrera, a Matt
Coaching
Holliday,
staffs.
and Andy Pettit, Cervelli, like you've Jorge Posada, like you've got names kind of all over the place. 3 years down the road, what does that mean for a Paul Goldschmidt? You know what I mean? There's
right.
a Clayton Kershaw, some of these names that are obviously calling it a career anytime now. Do they get more involved? And does that continue to feed back into the attraction of this tournament for current players? When at any point in my career do I get to be in a room for an extended period of time with these names? And oh yeah, by the way, Ken Griffey Jr. is our photographer who I can probably chat it up with, right? Like,
Crazy.
there's so many names that can give back to this thing. And I think, again, when some of these guys are getting to wear their flag for the first time, that's only going to make this more exciting.
To your point about being in the same club or same locker room as some of these other names, I know we've talked to Tarek Skubal a decent bit this tournament, but I did hear something he had to say about the rest of the roster, and they were asking about what his experience was like, and he said something to the effect of it's only been like a week, but I feel like I've known I've known these guys for months, if not years. And I'm like, that has to account for something. Like that's got to be some. I mean, I know it's not going to be the end all be all, but it's got to be somewhat of an incentivizer for some of these guys, whether position players or pitchers, to just be in the same room as like literally everybody else, the entire roster, potential like MVP winners. We're talking here, perennial MVP winners, and it's I don't know. I just don't know how. Going back to like my larger point, I just don't know how you can look at what comes from this tournament and think that it doesn't help the state of the game.
Yeah.
Fully agree. And even if you're somebody who's not if wearing the flag doesn't move you the way that it does somebody else, there is still enough baseball about this event that is worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Great point. Yeah.
And I just think that like just watching, for one, the level of competition, the fact that like when you go to an all-star game, I mean, you hear the young guys. I mean, I've seen a million interviews with Paul Skeens, and he'll tell you like, I get to pick your brain at an all-star game, and I'm glued and I'm doing that. And he mentioned about this. He's like, no, I just sat in a dugout with Skubal for 2 weeks and just nonstop talked pitching.
Right.
And so like, that is not, I got a couple days. I got, you know what I mean? Like I mentioned this, I mean, you guys were a little bit tapped into our show last night, and I was like, if you're a fan of, Thank you. If you're a fan of a team and your guy got to go to this thing, the experience of the atmosphere, the tension of the moment, and the fact that they got to spend 2 weeks with essentially an all-star team, no matter what team they played on, these guys that were in it for that long, those all are souped up teams, like they're all stacked. And that alone will pay dividends for your team, for your hometown team. And I think that to me has so much value to it that, yes, I know it increases injuries. Yes, I know that O'Neal Cruz was a backup on the DR and he's had like 15 plate appearances this spring. And I'm a little bit worried about what he's going to look like on April 1st. But at the same time, look at what he was surrounded by and got an opportunity to be a part of. I mean, that dude had 5 plate appearances, and did he make the most of it? You know what I'm saying? Like, he got out once or twice, but still, like, what a moment to put those guys in. I can't get over. I mean, you guys know me. I'm all baseball, and I can't get over how much baseball won in the last 2 weeks. And this is what I keep telling you guys, like, you guys were locked in. I liked the last one. This was a whole different level of what we've seen so far. And I will raise my hand too and say that part of that is because I was locked in at an earlier stage. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch pool play in 2023, right? But I watched every game after that.
Quarterfinals,
get me out of the pool play and I'm in. And you know what? If that's where you're going to be as a fan and you're listening to this, like, that's probably worth it, because that Brazil game was rough.
Yeah.
Watching Brazil was worse than watching spring training baseball. I will stand by that statement. But once it gets out of pool play, baseball was, I mean, this was a show. This was on display, and it was fantastic.
One thing I was thinking about, so we had when I say we, in Phoenix, Chase Field was a host site 3 years ago. Miami was the other host site as far as US goes. And then this year, obviously switching to Houston and then still Miami. I'm curious to see what this does for host sites. I'm really interested to see maybe what other countries pop up. Casey, you had like a kind of a cool opportunity to be down in Puerto Rico for a vacation. You got to see like the hype before it started, and like that was, getting a lot of attention. I'm curious to see if there's other places that they're looking at for host sites. I'm curious to see, with the Olympics being in LA in 28, does that change from being in a dome site for one of these host sites in the US for the 29 WBC? Do they do it again in LA? Do you do this at the Angels place? Do you do it at, somewhere in Florida, like somewhere that you're not going to have to deal with weather at this time of year? Like, those are some of the things I'm really curious about.
A lot of questions.
I'm gonna miss it. I'm kind of sad. Like, I feel,
dude, I remember this last tournament.
Yeah,
it's you go into this like weird depression until the season starts. And honestly, even like a week into the season, I remember last time being like, opening day was sick. Like, I love it. I'm never gonna not like opening day, but like I kind of miss the WBC. To be honest with you, it takes a while for that to wear off.
Yeah, it does. I'm glad it's only a week until
I can't get enough. I'm a sicko, so I locked into spring training as soon as I went there. I sat back in my seat and I said, I love this baseball too.
We're at the WBC in Houston, and Josh is just like we're like throwing darts in the Airbnb, and Josh is in there watching. Like, he's like cutting up clips, cutting up clips of Pirate spring training. It's like the sixth string guys.
I mean, I have content to produce too, right? So I went in there and didn't know what I was talking about. But yes.
I think that's the aspect of it, almost in like a fantasy baseball kind of way. And I get that maybe fantasy baseball isn't for everybody. Even baseball fans that I know that love baseball are like, I can't do fantasy baseball. I get that. But I think, with this tournament, like you got to see a lot of other names that you're like, you know what, maybe I will watch some of their ABs, you know, for whatever team they go play for during the regular season. Like maybe I won't be so like, you know, tapped into my own team. I'll turn on other games in the background. So I hope, I just hope this tournament did that for you. If you're listening, and if this was your first tournament watching, like I would highly recommend, I said this last episode, like I'd highly recommend trying and getting to, you know, some of these games if you get the opportunity. JB, I think, probably lived it the best, was getting to go to WBC games and then going to get to see his team in spring training. Like, I think there's some opportunities here, and just getting to see some of these other cultures. It's one of the coolest things, man. It's one of the coolest things. I'm gonna miss it for sure. Now I'm going to go yell at my Yankee team for the next 6 months and say we're dead 72 times before the season's over.
You mean during one game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this, I think, accidentally turned into episode 599 because I think I was planning for us to do a little WBC recap tomorrow, our usual Wednesday recording night. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and chop the last hour of this and use this as our episode. So there's episode 599, episode 600 on deck, which, talking regular season / opening day, that will be our next episode, is the hot takes and predictions episode. Hard to believe we're already here.
600 is hard to believe for me, man. That's
600. Been doing this a long time, but it's going to be good, man. JB is going to be in the corner. He's going to have some takes. You better bring your takes. And we're gonna try to do a little differently this year. We'll try to incorporate some new things that maybe we haven't done in previous hot take episodes. But this is the most highly anticipated episode of the year for the 3-0 take.
Keep an eye out for the story too. I think there's going to be a lot of prompts. I mean, we love reading off hot takes every episode. We love to mix in some of your guys' hot takes. So please DM us, comment on the stories. Like, that's going to be, I mean, we're a little irrational, but that's what's cool, is that we're fans and we get to be. So that's what you're going to get the next episode.
Well, keep an eye out for it. It'll be coming next week, and opening day will be next week as well. So I'm excited. I'm a little depressed right now. It's going to take some time for this to wear off. This one stung, but to Nate's point, if you're looking for a silver lining, I think the alternative outcome here that we witnessed tonight, I think, whether you want to believe it or not, I think actually did a lot more for baseball than had our boys in the red, white, and blue pulled it out. So I think it was a win-win either way. Granted, we would have loved to see the U.S. pull it out, but I'm excited to see, like you guys were saying, and like I agree with, I think I'm excited to see what this does for the sport of baseball, both at the WBC level, but also just around the world. So unless you guys have any other thoughts, I think that is a good place to wrap it.
JB, what you got?
Shout out Jake and Jacob and Murray, still hanging out in the chat 4 hours later.
The boys.
Love it.
Love that. JB.
Well, we've said this before. I've used this line before, and I think tonight is probably the best time for me to say, go baseball.
You guys are incredible. Come back next week. It's going to be just as fun. Don't go chasing curveballs.
We love you on as always. Looking forward to talking more baseball with you guys soon. Until next time, stay filthy.